Hey everybody, it's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. Trying to get over the plague. I was tested positive for the plague for COVID a couple of days ago. Um, it's not horrible. You can probably hear it in my voice a little bit though. Other than that, I feel normal. I feel fine. Having been boosted a couple times, vaccinated and boosted, and having had it a long time ago in January 2020, this has kind of made it kind of nice. My wife just had it too, but she's pretty much getting over it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I just want to kind of give a little disclaimer for why my voice is kind of weird. And I'm kind of doing this video on purpose, a short one, to kind of get it ready because I'm supposed to run an online game for a bunch of kids for 4 hours, so I want to get my voice kind of primed. A vocal warm-up, as it were. All right, so this video is actually going to be relatively short. I wanted to do a series of videos about some game mastering tips, and I know I've done bigger videos about game mastering tips that you can probably find further down. I don't know why I'm pointing down. I never put links down there, but I'm not that fancy. But you could probably find it in my playlist on my YouTube channel if you care. But I wanted to do some. I've been running games for 42 years now. 42. I'm an actor as a writer, so I like to think I have a pretty good little bit of lore to share. There's some really good YouTube lore out there. That there's some really good YouTubers that to produce some really good wisdom. I agree with a lot of it. There's some of it I don't really agree with that much, if I can ever get to those videos, I'll say why. I'll tell you why. But most of it I really do, and there's some really good stuff. But there's several subjects that either have been danced around or not really strongly represented, and I wanted to start with one of them. So this video is about challenge ratings and challenge levels. So in Savage Kingdoms, the game, you may or may not know that I published this as the third edition. We have a system known as CL, which means challenge level. And it's just a way to not use CR, which D&D uses challenge rating. However, our system is a little different. It's not calculated the same. I actually find it to be a little bit more accurate than D&Z's, but hey, that's a slight bias, I'm sure. However, they're all very loose, so this is a thing that I want to everyone to understand. Challenge ratings and challenge levels and whatever other systems might have their terminology for that. It's just a very general guideline. A lot of people talk about how D&D 5e challenge rating system is broken or whatever. It's not really broken. It was never designed to be precise in the first place. So my advice is to don't even really worry about it that much. Before I go into that little piece of advice, let me break it down a little bit further. So the reason challenge ratings and challenge levels are very broad is because in tabletop role-playing games, because we do cover adventuring areas and different regions and weather effects and all these things that are happening as they would be in a real world adventurer journey. Um, these add all sorts of different variables. So it's what's the theory called? White terrain, where five enemies show up. It's on a flat terrain. It's completely white, and they're 50 feet away. Right. So that's rarely going to happen unless you encounter someone in a white glacier on a beautiful bright day and it happens to be flat, and even then the glacier's slick, right? So there's another variable. So every variable you add to a scene or a scenario or an encounter changes things. So if your challenge level or rating is right here and you've got it pretty well figured out, suddenly the slick terrain makes it that, or maybe a blizzard comes and there's that. Uh, and then the other variables are the different characters with their different talents and different skills and such with the party, right? So if they're mostly melee warriors, then there's this little adjustment that has to be made. If they're mostly ranged warriors or fighters, they have to be this thing. If they're mostly spellcasters, suddenly that's different. So a long way of saying, do not worry really that much about challenge rating and challenge level. The other reason don't worry about it is because not only because the white background theory crafting is because as a game master you have one brain, right? The other players have multiple brains between them all collectively. So let's say you have the typical sort of 4-player party. They have 4 heads to think of things to do against your enemies. You have one, right? And yes, that's your job as a game master. It's my job also sometimes as an actor if I have to play various characters in the same show. You have to have all those little places in your head, right, to think, but you still, in real life and reality, only have the one brain, right? So when I throw, so to speak, more powerful creatures against a party that's challenge levels probably lower than they should be facing, rarely do they get defeated, or at least rarely get TPK'd, if ever. And the reason why is because of what I just said. Because the players will come up with some reason to get out of it, because they have 4 or 5, sometimes maybe you have 7 players. That's 6 people thinking of things to do to escape the situation, to one up the situation, to overcome the situation in some way. So don't even worry that much about, I say that much, about challenge levels, challenge ratings, and that sort of thing. Use it just as a very guideline. Because, in most cases, 90% of the time, the players will find a way around of it. And maybe that means they're just fleeing or running away, and that should happen. You encounter outcomes should be different. If every encounter outcome is like someone is completely killed and like the enemy is killed, no one's ever captured, no one ever runs away, uh, no one ever parleys in the middle of it. I know that would be a little ridiculous, but it could happen. So if all of your encounters are ending in this one way where everyone is killed, and why you would want to kill everyone and not take a prisoner is kind of beyond me, but a lot of the younger players will kind of do that. Um, then that means your encounters are not being varied enough, and that means that if your player characters are always being the victorious end of that, that means the challenge level's fine, and if anything, it's a little too low. So my personal advice is to skew slightly higher than the challenge level and challenge rating if you're even going to worry about it at all. So just kind of eyeball it. Party of let's use the D&D adventure situation. So a party of 4 player characters, they're 3rd level, right? So the challenge level of creatures supposedly that they should be facing is challenge level 3. So right, or challenge rating 3, same thing. But again, probably not a big deal. Depends on the terrain, depends on the weather, depends on the party's buildup, depends on how far apart the encounter starts. Are they right up on them, or are they 300 feet apart? Big variables in there that can swing those challenge ratings 1 or 2 points, sometimes 3 points. Honestly, if you were to really break it down with math, so yeah, so that probably about does it. So just remember, challenge rating, challenge level is really not that big a deal. Don't be afraid to over challenge your players. I will add to that note though, and I had a conversation with someone a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago actually, about this. It's fun to, as a game master. Another little trick I do is I like to put occasionally in a foe or potential foe that is just completely outmatched by the player characters. And this makes them, A, it's the feel good thing, right, that we all kind of know about it. But B, it's very similar to your world. It's showing the players that not everything is scaling with them entirely. So the scaling system of tabletop role playing games is both a boon, and a bane. The boon being that we're used to it, and it's fun. We get new powers, and we get to challenge more things, um, be it in combat or otherwise. The drawback is it's not that. I hate to use the term realistic because everyone goes crazy when you use realism in fantasy, but I will actually, because I actually think that's cool. Um, if you're crafting a believable, let's use the word believable, then story, then that everything shouldn't be exactly going up, leveling up with you, right? So I think it's cool for the adventurers to encounter something that they can just beat down in a round or two or something, if we're talking direct combat. Excuse me, or if it's a social situation, something they can handle very, very easily through diplomacy or wit or cunning or other forms of cleverness. Just to remind them that they're awesome. They're kind of a lead above most people in the world, and that the game doesn't scale like mysteriously perfectly with everything. The flip side of that would be to every once in a while, as I kind of alluded to already, over challenge them a little bit. In fact, I typically over challenge my players than I do under challenge them. And that way, again, it makes the world more respectable. PCs sometimes can be a little arrogant because, especially in like D&D 5th edition, where they have all kinds of, it's pretty hard to die, honestly, in that system. so they get a little cocky sometimes. So Savage Kingdoms is my game. It's that I wrote. It's a little more gritty. Um, so it's fun to kind of remind them that the world is still there. It's a dangerous place. They're still in a setting that has horrible creatures and demons that come in from the netherworld and all these terrible things. And even the human foes can be sometimes even worse. Um, that it's kind of a gritty Dark Ages sword and sorcery kind of setting, and to live up to those actual genre terms, they need to be reminded sometimes. So a little insight to how I run challenge ratings and challenge levels. I apologize for my voice. I kind of rambled a little bit there. I didn't really make any notes, so I apologize. Maybe the next one I do a little more organized. So anyway, thanks for listening, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.